three things about that. Number one, they'll tell you to belly preach, to push your, if you'll push here, it's like that, column right, and people will tell you to do that. I was just saying, it don't work for me, so I'm not going to tell you to do it. And the other thing, of course, is holding the Bible up to your mouth like that, and what that does, that'll stop it from just going at your voice from just going all over. You can kind of direct it. And I'm a firm believer in amplification. If you can get away with it, get away with it. I've only been stopped 3 times. Both 2 times were in a rich section, Beverly Hills, California, and Rodeo Drive, which is right off Beverly Hills, and we were preaching to the rich folk. And then you'd get saved too. Sure. And so we were down there, and the rent-a-cop came up and said, you can't preach here. And I said, I gave her my usual stuff about public street, public sidewalk. And she said, that's not so here. And I said, well, I got to talk to a real cop. I mean, always push it, if you can. Sure. You don't want to be obnoxious to the police, but push it a little bit. So the cop came and he confirmed it. He said, you can't preach here. There's public, private property, all of this. I said, well, what am I going to do? And he said, well, why don't you just go across the street? I said, you mean I can preach if I just go across the street? And he said, well, sure. He said, you can go on that corner, that corner, that corner. This is the only place here that's private property. So if you'll submit yourself to the powers that be, if you'll submit yourself to the police and be a halfway decent guy and don't be a jerk, then it worked out better. I was actually able, he told me to turn the horn off, and when I started preaching with just my regular voice, the configurations of the building were such, the Lord had it so it was acting. In fact, the guy actually turned around, he thought I was still using the horn. So if there's any way, use a horn. It saves your voice, that's the first thing. You can just talk like I'm talking right now into a truth horn. It's a truth horn because we preach Jesus Christ in it, and it's no bull. So get a horn and try using it, and it'll save your voice. The good thing about amplification is that you can preach above any heckler. You can preach over top of any crowd, any traffic, any motorcycles going by, and that's just a real good thing. Did everybody see this little deal right here? I call this a belly preacher. And a guy sold it to me for $100, and they make them over in Japan. They'll say, if you go online, you may be able to find something like this. And this is a great little deal. I've been preaching on the street with 6 other preachers, all using horns, and they shut everybody down but me. I had this on, and they helped.
How does that work?
Man, it works good.
I mean, you got to have a microphone with it too?
Yeah, you get this little doolally right here, and you can, it's all adjustable. I won't bother to put all this stuff on, but I don't sell these. If I knew enough guys that wanted them, I'd order them, and I'd have them. Because this thing right here, you can just get out here and preach and just talk in your regular tone of voice. Pass out gospel tracts, do those kind of things, preach out of the Bible. You can hold a banner and you don't have to worry about it all falling over, so it's a good deal.
Is that a rechargeable battery?
Yeah, I don't know if they're NiCads or not.
No, they're just regular batteries.
Yeah, just regular batteries, but you could probably put NiCads in.
Right. That was $100.
300.
He charged me $100.
For you, my American friend, $100.
Well, the thing is, they're American people. And their father moved over to Japan as missionaries to Japan. And then they came back over here for something. He's got all these kids. They bought 2 houses. They put all the girls in this one, all the boys in that one, over here in Southern California. And they are They go out for 7 in the morning till 5 at night every day. And they're supported by a school over in Japan that sends them all of their money. Now, I know a guy from Australia. I know a guy from Japan now. I know a guy from Korea who left their respective countries to come over here because this place is so wicked and so ungodly. So they call themselves missionaries there. So the advantages of using amplification, of course, is that you can save your voice. You can talk all day, as opposed to using all your power. You can be heard above the crowd, and you're louder than a heckler. There's a couple of disadvantages with using a horn, using an amplifier. You may or may not require a permit. And of course, some of you guys know about those things. Of course, there's no permit required for preaching in the United States. Public street, public sidewalk, and a park, a government park. You don't need a permit for that, but some towns have what they call ordinances. And if the cop comes up, we've had them come up, well, you can't do this here. And ask them. I mean, you want to be polite to the police, but don't let them push you around. The easiest thing for a cop to do is to shut you down. That's the simplest thing. They get a complaint. If they get a complaint, they got to come. And the simplest thing for them is just to shut you down. But what a cop should do, and what we appreciate in the areas where we've been preaching for a number of years, they'll come around and they'll observe you. And that's what they should do. Sure. They'll stand there and watch, you see. And what they should do is walk over and say, hey, we got a complaint, but we're watching you here, and I don't see you not doing anything against the law. And then he ought to go to that person, made the complaint, and said, look, this guy ain't doing anything against the law. He's within his constitutional rights. I know a guy, I've been in court probably 7, 8, 9 times up in Wisconsin, and he has sued the city of Madison. He sued a number of smaller towns because they locked him up for preaching. And then he takes them to federal court, and he wins the case. And Wisconsin is a great place to preach because of one man. And you got to determine how far you're willing to go when you go out on the street. Am I going to go to jail? I've been preaching on the street for 35 years. I've never been in jail. I got no intention of going. I come close, real close, a couple times, But so anyway, that about voice projection. If I was gonna give you anything that would help you with this stuff, I'd say that you can do anything that you want to do until somebody tells you to stop.
Right.
And then when they tell you to stop, then it's on you how far you want to go with this stuff. If I want to go down, we've gone down to the city halls and checked on the ordinance numbers. The cop says, hey, we got an ordinance. I said, would you happen to have the number on that ordinance? I'd like to go check that out. I have had cops just give me the ordinance number right off the top of their head. I don't even go bother to check that out. I figure it's right.
I preach in Savannah every year during St. Patrick's Day Parade, and I carry a copy of the Savannah City Ordinance. It's like 40 pages in print off online. I keep it in my backpack.
Oh, that's great.
The cop gives you the number, you go, that one?
Yeah. Oh, that's great, man.
They love that.
I'm sure they do. We were down at Las Vegas on that, where they got the lights running down there and all. Fremont Street Light Show. And the guys came over, he comes squealing up there on his bicycle, you got to leave. And I said, well, why do I have to leave? It's a public street here. Oh, no, man. He said, you can't do it. I said, well, can you show me something? Show me the law. And, right away, 10-4, we got, he's on the horn there. And here comes 2 more guys on bicycles, and then I ended up with 4 of them. And they're fumbling through all this stuff. Well, they never did find anything. Yeah. They never did. But see, if you had just left, then that would be the end of the preaching. And that's the most important thing. Okay. Any questions on the horn? This is going to be pretty basic stuff for you guys.
I just want to know what the name of it is, where I look it up at.
Yeah, okay, go ahead and
Just go on the internet, because you can't find that one. That one's only sold in Japan.
no.
But if you go on the internet and look up megaphones for your belt, for your waist, and you can get something for like $50 on a. But that one they say costs $300.
Well, you ain't going to get 2 blocks away with that one, but at the same time,
I
it's on the
tried to
back.
look at it.
I don't know if you can find that one, but you could sure go check it.
We were down in Deland preaching with not supposed to.
Uh-huh.
They gave me the megaphone, and I'm so used to preaching unamplified. I kept forgetting to push the button down. I kept yelling into the megaphone. I watched the video, like, I look like an idiot out there.
Well, you think that's bad. I had this thing out, and I pushed the button. But, you know, this is the side you preach in. I'm preaching in the other side. You know, we were at the Democratic National Convention preaching. And so that was that. Second thing he wanted me to talk about, and I'll spend most of my time on, is the importance of clarity. You understand what I mean? Can people understand you when you're preaching? You can be a good preacher. You can be the best preacher in the world. But if people don't understand you when you're preaching, you're not going to be effective. And I like to tell people that preaching to sinners is like preaching in a hospital zone. You get when you enter into a hospital zone, the first thing that you see is the speed limit changes, and they want you to slow down. So think about your street preaching in the sense of being in a hospital zone, and slow down. Just slow down, and don't be so quick. You don't have to preach real fast. Slow down. You're preaching to sick sinners, and you're preaching to sick Christians, and the Christians give you more trouble than the sinners give you. Don't they? You folks that are preaching out there, you know it. They'll come to you with all kind of problems, all kind of, well, you can't do this, and you got no love. You know what they say. Well, you're judging. You can't judge me. I usually tell them, are you judging me? You know, and just try to be funny about it. But you're in a hospital zone. So slow it down, brother. You get out there, especially, I preach up north a lot. Now we're going home. We've been out for 6 months. And I'll spend 6 months up home, get a job, work, and save so we can do this again. But you know how it is, especially you Southern boys now. You're going to get out there, and you're going to get out there with that accent. And, you know, all the northern girls think you're so cute with that little accent. But the problem is, you get out there and the Bible said that the blood of Jesus Christ, his son, cleanse you from all sin. Well, they don't understand you. It's appointed unto man once to die, and after this judgment. I'll tell you something, friend, you're going to split hell wide open, man, if you want, you know, you're going to get going like that, see? And if you're going to get hurt, and this matter of clarity, slow down. Don't be in so much of a hurry. You know, it's important, friend, for you. I usually start out, I'm not telling you how to preach, and you can preach any way you want. But I usually start out by saying, well, folks, I got some bad news for you. I try to tweak their interest, you know, and they're kind of, you know, you can see them, they're almost slowing down, you know, and they kind of want to hear it. And I said, you got to die one day. You're going in a grave, friend. You're going in a 6-foot hole in the ground. That's where you're going. That's where you're going to stay. And just talk to them. I'm not so much interested in all this Bible says, Bible says, Bible says, Bible says stuff. Every time you quote a verse, you got to say, the Bible said, you know, God, the Holy Spirit of God will use that word. And you don't have to qualify it by saying this is the Bible and the Bible said every single verse that you quote. It's unnecessary. You're just wasting time. You might not look at it like that. If you don't want to pay attention, that's your business. I want to say too, remember it's a hospital zone, but I want to say too, I want to talk just for a couple seconds. I don't have a lot of time here, but I want to talk about propriety. How many of y'all don't know what that means? Because I had to look it up. Propriety is appropriateness. What's appropriate when you're out on the street? You're not out here by yourself today. You're out here with a bunch of other preachers that know what they're doing, and they're out here preaching. But what I've noticed in 35 years of preaching is that out on the street, is that God-called preachers can be obnoxious sometimes. Yes, sir. And you need to have some manners while you're preaching. Yeah. I'll say this to you in regard to other preachers. If someone is preaching close to you, just wait for them to finish. You know, don't walk up there and you know, and get going preaching. If you got a guy standing close to you, Just wait for him to finish. And by the way, if you're preaching and you see somebody else coming over and you see him standing over there, you know the guy wants to preach. He's a preacher. Don't go on and on for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And, you know, the best times that I've had on the street are like a tag team, you know, kind of a match. You know, I'll go for a little bit and then bam, off he goes. And after you get some guys that you're used to preaching with, if you've got that, it almost becomes automatic. And I know when he's just about done. He knows when I'm just about done. And the important thing is to keep the preaching going. That's a pretty important thing. So in this matter of clarity, you know, you got a guy preaching and you step up there and start preaching. Well, it's like two radio stations trying to come across the same channel. They're not getting anything. We've been at homo parades. I'm trying to change it, but sodomite parades. My wife and I started calling them Gomorrites because they don't know what that is. But when you get out there, everybody's got a horn. Everybody walks up with a big horn like that, and they'll put you in an area. The police will protect you, but they'll put you in an area about there. You get 4 horns going in something like that. There is no clarity.
Yeah.
Nobody understands what you're talking about. When we were down in, I graduated from Pensacola down in '85, and Doc had us going down to the Rosie O'Grady's down there. And they used to play that, you know, that had that great big siren out there in front of the bar. Rosie O'Grady's was a bar. We went there every Saturday night, and they'd come out as soon as we started preaching and crank that great big siren up. And we used to wonder, well, is anybody getting anything here? You know, you can't help but wonder. And we had a guy get saved, and he said, you know, I used to be in that bar. And you probably were thinking that nobody could hear you, but all of that noise was coming across the street at you. And your voice was cutting right through all that noise and going right into Rosie O'Grady's, and they could hear you. And I don't care how much commotion was going on in that place, or the siren outside, they would hear. You know, he said it would be like, you know, oh, Jesus Christ, you know, and you could hear it. And he said, we're sitting in there listening to it. You know, so on the matter of clarity, just remember some manners. Get some manners to you. I don't have a lot of respect for people coming up and heckling and those kind of things. I'll give them trouble right back. I got a lot of, I don't know if you all remember Mad Magazine. Anybody remember that? Mad Magazine. They used to have a section in there called snappy answers to stupid questions.
Right.
And that used to be one of my favorite things, you know, besides spy versus spy. And I've got some snappy answers to stupid questions. And, you know, I've preached with guys and they think, oh, he's cruel, he's mean, he don't love anybody. But I'm kind of the opinion, I don't want them to get the last word. And the main thing that I want to do, if they're just walking by, I want to cut them. And you take that sword and you cut them. And I don't want them to get walking by and to think that they got away with something. So when they walk by and they got some smart remarks, so well, you're going to stand in front of God one day, and don't forget it's appointed unto man once to die. You know, or I was arguing with some evolutionist there one time, and we were going back and forth, and he was a big hot evolutionist. And that's not what I'm there for. I'm there to preach the gospel. Yeah. But you got to deal with some of this. Sure. You got to look for an out, and look for a way to get back into the gospel some kind of way. But we were going, the crowd was with him. We had about 75 kids standing there, and they were all laughing at me and everything, and we're going back and forth, and he made me look like an idiot. And the Lord gave me something. When he's talking, pray. Pray. Don't just stand there, you know. Pray. God, give me something. Give me something, Lord. I need to sink this guy's boat. Give me something. And I just changed the whole thing around. It's not hooray for me. It's I learned it from somebody else. But that guy was going on there and on about evolution. I said, you want to know something, buddy? I said, I agree with you. As a matter of fact, you're one of the more convincing proofs of evolution that I've ever seen. And that little statement turned the whole crowd around, and they started laughing at him, and I got the attention of that whole bunch, that whole crowd. See how that worked? And then, just trying to scream over top of somebody, and then he's screaming, and you're screaming, and nothing's going on. People look at you, and they think it's a big argument going on. So he's talking about clarity. He wants me to talk about clarity. So watch your manners, and you need to remember, brethren, that people walking past you, if you don't have a crowd, if you're just standing on a street corner and people walking past you, they're going to get 20 or 30 seconds of what you're saying. Yep. And that's going to be about it. I've been out on the street with guys, great street preachers, and they preached a 40-minute message out there. Saying, well, the guy starts here, and he's coming where he can maybe from there, if you're just using your natural voice, and he might start picking you up along that in here. 1 little second, 2 little second, 3 little second, 4 little second, 5 little second, 6 little second, 7 little second, 8 little second, 9 little second, 10 little second. So about 10 seconds of what you're saying, he's getting. Yeah. So, if he's not going to stop, you're wasting your time, because here comes somebody else, and you're still going on with this message, and they haven't heard the first part of it. Now they're walking up there, and they don't know what you're talking about. You see what I'm talking about? So what's the answer? The answer is just try short bursts of Bible. You want to give a Bible. And maybe I look at it a little bit different. I said this morning when I was preaching, I'm serious about it, that my job is to warn people that are on their way to hell. It doesn't take a lot of verses to warn somebody that they're going to hell.
Amen.
I want to tweak their interest. I want them to come back and talk to me. We'll say some more about that. But I want them to stop and talk to somebody. Somebody can open a Bible. Somebody can show them the Word of God. But if they're not going to do that, then I want to hit them with about 3 or 4 or 5 verses while they're walking on. And you can do that. The good thing about Bible banners, you don't have to say anything. You stand there with the banner, man. I mean, a deaf mute could do that, man. And the banner can preach for you.
Amen.
Your shirt there says Jesus saves. You can walk, that's another great way of witnessing. They see that shirt. Whether you got it on your hat, I had a brother, you probably heard of Reuben Israel. He gave me this hat. Everybody talking about Reuben, how he's in the blah, blah, all this stuff. And you don't know the guy. But he gave me this hat. And I appreciate that. I've been out on college campus, and I've had, I don't know how many kids, they'll come walking by and they say, we're not supposed to fear God, we're supposed to respect Him. They've got something stupid to say, but it got in.
Amen.
And obviously it got in. And your t-shirt will get in, your hat, your gospel tract. And there's a lot of tools. God's got this toolbox, see? And He's going to dip into this toolbox, and He knows this guy coming along, see? And He might take a guy that's real good witnesser, a real good personal worker. And then He might have somebody that's just downright obnoxious. But God takes that tool out of that box and He uses it. And the Spirit of God gives the increase. God gives the increase. I've often wondered how in the world, I keep trying to think back how I got saved. And all it was, brother, was just people giving me gospel tracts. And somebody explaining the gospel to me and that kind of stuff. And it was the Spirit of God that did the work. I got over there and reading that thing, and it's like, nobody come over and club you on the head or anything. God has to give the increase. So it's like that. On this matter of clarity, colleges and universities are a different story. If you can get on, any state college has a free speech area. There are private colleges, and they'll kick you off. I'm very nervous going on a college campus. I'm not a very smart person, and I'm worried about it from when I get on there. But you can get as stupid as I am. I've got crowds of 50 to 200 students, and we're standing there having open debate about Bible topics, back and forth. Well, what do you think about that? And what do you think about this? And that kind of stuff. And, you know, I really like it.
Yeah.
I like it. As opposed to what we're going to be doing down here tonight or tomorrow if it quits raining, preaching to a bunch of drunks. I mean, great, man. Get down there and preach to them. But you got some students that have some questions, and they can come up to you. We went to the RLDS conference over in just before we came here down in Independence, Missouri. We had people coming back 3 days in a row when we talked to us. You know, he wanted to argue, but he was still coming back. You know, nobody argues so much about God as the atheist who said he doesn't exist. So let me say too, just a word on this clarity stuff about questions. A lot of different ways to go with the questions. People often have legitimate questions. You get out there on the street and they really want to know something. I mean, they just lost a mother. Maybe their baby just died or something like that. We've had people that have a real legitimate question. Most questions are a bunch of jerks. You know, they're trying to heckle you, they're trying to do something like that. And it takes a certain amount of discernment to know which is which. And they can fool you pretty good too. We had a gal on a college campus, we were out there preaching, and she comes out there and drew a pentagram around us and took a bunch of salt. She's throwing salt up in the air and she's casting a spell is what she was doing. And I told her, I said, baby, that stuff don't work with Christians. I said, we're covered in the blood. I said, you can do all that stupidity that you want to, man. All you're doing is wearing yourself down. But it takes discernment. So you get somebody asks a question. You're up there preaching. And he comes over, he wants to talk to you. Well, the first thing I'm going to do, if you don't want to handle it, I'm going to go over and what am I going to say? Can I help you? Have you got a question? And this is all under this subtopic of clarity, because you want to keep the preaching going. It pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. So keep the preaching going. Now, if you're up there and you're preaching and somebody asks a question, you might want to answer it, and so that everybody can hear it. Somebody asks me a question, and I'm fortunate enough to know the answer, which doesn't happen all the time, but I'll usually repeat it. You know, this guy said, can God make a rock so heavy you can't lift it, or something dumb like that? You know, you can make a fool out of him, or you can give him an answer a fool according to his folly. You can get the guy. It just takes discernment. The preacher sometimes want to step down and let somebody else know, you know, to go over there. And if you want to deal with him, you go, but keep the preaching going. See, that's the main thing. And I hate to bring this up, but I probably need to, and I need work in this area too, and that is watch your attitude. You got to watch your attitude, man. I mean, I get upset. Brother, there's just something about telling somebody about Jesus Christ and they don't want it, and they're laughing, and the filth that some of these people say about my Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. You've been out there street preaching, you know what I'm talking about, brother, and I get mad. I do. I got to try to put it down. It's easy to get mad. Anybody can get mad. You know, but control your emotions. You're not going to be able to preach right if you're upset. And the Japanese have a saying that, you know, he that gets mad first loses. So don't lose your temper. God will usually give you something to say to control the situation. Proverbs 25 said, he that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that's broken down without walls. Smiling, man. Control your emotions. I'm preaching to myself. That's all. I could give you 100 illustrations. A cop comes over, you know. All you got to do is listen to him. Don't try to interrupt. All you got to do is listen to the guy. What do you want? What's the problem? And he'll tell you. I've reached out and tapped the guy on the shoulder. I said, look, you know, because he's going on and on and on and on. And I'm saying, look, officer, do you want to? Holy cats, you don't ever want to touch a cop. Don't ever touch him. He gets all upset and you're trying to make your point. It's okay to get angry. It's okay to get upset. And I think God likes that, by the way. But you can't let it run you. You can't let it control you. Any man is a king if he can rule himself. And the reason that a lot of Christians don't go any further than, the back row is because they can't control themselves. Control your emotions. The greatest victory is victory over yourself. And you've got to learn how to control your anger. Proverbs chapter 12, the Bible said, there is that speaketh like the piercings of a sword, but the tongue of the wise is health. Watch your attitude. You go out on the street, be careful about it. I can't take my own advice, but I know what I should do. You go out there and things really, they start escalating. It starts getting hot. Just take a step back. I'll usually, if I'm thinking, I'll just turn my back on. And I'll just come over here and I'll stand over here for a minute. And the cops like that, they like to see you controlling the situations. You want to be authoritative, not obnoxious. So don't watch your attitude. Let me give you this, and that'll be all that I got. And I think, was that about a half hour? I really don't know. That's all of it. Yeah.
Put the clock back on the wall.
I forgot what time I started. It's a great thing about having old son. The other thing that he wanted me to cover was the need to adjust your volume in different situations. And this horn, if you're going to use a horn now, it ought to be just loud enough for the people in the back of your crowd there to hear you. They're the ones you're trying to reach anyway. All the hecklers will be up front. And the guys that really want the help and that see something and want to know something, they'll be standing in the back. They'll be the ones that'll be standing there like this. They're not the big mouth.
Yeah.
That's why you need to watch your attitude when you have a crowd and you're preaching to a group of people. Watch how you handle the hecklers, because some guy in the back needs some help, and he's not going to say anything. We had a guy say, well, what about, we were at some rock concert somewhere, and the girl says, well, why don't you preach on that verse that you're supposed to cut your daughter's head off if she needs something?
Cut your wife's head off or something.
Yeah. And, well, you know that's not in the Bible, man. And so I was trying to get her settled down. Well, as they're walking away, you got to adjust your volume so that they can still hear you. They need to see that they need to hear you. People accuse you of being hateful and yelling at people, but you've got to raise your voice. I try to explain it to them. I got people. If I'm preaching on somewhere, there's people over there sitting in the back over there that I'm trying to preach to too. That are all going to come around, gather around you. So I try to explain to them. Well, them guys over there, you see there, they need to hear about Jesus Christ too. And I don't set off an atomic bomb when a BB gun would do just as well. There's no need to have your volume on your amp or something set up to 800 when you can just reach the people in front of you. How many of y'all know who Garrison Keillor is? I used to like that show. Garrison Keillor is a really? And he was, we were preaching in Chicago, and he said that, my wife said, well, there's Garrison Keillor. And he had his boyfriend, and they were arm in arm. He wouldn't take a track, his boyfriend did, but I got to preach to Garrison Keillor. And I'm pretty happy about that. Kathy Griffin, how many of y'all know who she is? If you'll be where you're supposed to be, the Lord brought Kathy Griffin by at the People's Choice Awards. She saw our banner across the street. She came across the street, wanted to talk to somebody. She wanted to talk to me. And I asked her, after we talked for a bit, I said, well, what about it, Kathy? I said, what's it going to be, man? Heaven or hell for you? And she said, well, I'll take hell. So really stupid. But see, now she's had an opportunity to hear the gospel. She's had a chance to just sit there and ask any question she wanted to me. And I would very happily give her anything. We go to the Academy Awards in California, People's Choice Award. These people are a mess. The Grammys, all that stuff. If you ever go to California and talk to somebody, it'd be out there. That's all I got. That was on voice projection, and that was on clarity, and that was on one other thing. That was on adjusting your volume to reach your people. Don't set off an H bomb.